I want to welcome everyone to today's special AJET ASCILITE sponsored ASCILITE Live webinar featuring the guest presenter from the AJET special issue around smart learning environments. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Simon K.S. Chung of the Open University of Hong Kong, who's going to lead us through the session. Simon, over to you.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. This is the webinar. Welcome to this webinar on the review and showcase of smart learning environment. I will just start with a brief overview and to give you an introduction of the presentation and the presenter. Well, smart learning environment. Maybe we start with what is a smart learning environment. That will be better to characterizing the smart learning environment in different ways. Now, first of all, smart learning environment emphasize the flexibility, learning effectiveness, efficiency, student engagement, adaptivity, reflectiveness, and many emphasis. And more importantly, integrate that both the formal and informal learning are integrated in that environment. Essentially, a smart learning environment embraces many concepts, such as the personalized learning, intelligent tutoring, blended learning, etc. Well, as you see, there is obviously no single form of smart learning environment. As time go by, there are new concepts, new approach, new method, and also technology are also evolving. And there are always new opportunity to turn out for advancing the learning environment. And so we consider that the smart learning continues, the, the smart learning environment continue to evolve. That is what we call we consider that there will be a continuous pursuit of smart learning environment in the coming futures. This seminar, this is basically based on the Australasian Journal of Education Technology special issue on smart learning environment. Well, this special issue was just published yesterday. That you may take a look at the special issue through the journal website. This special issue start the call for submission last year in September, and we attract almost 90 submissions. There are altogether 88 submissions, and finally we accepted 12 articles. And this webinar is basically for some author of this article to share their finding and successful experience. So exactly the purpose of this webinar is first to reveal the latest development of smart learning practice and to showcase some very successful implementation of the presenter for experience sharing and knowledge exchange. And at the last, we will also identify some areas to be addressed in the future work. We believe that all this will provide a good reference for researcher and practitioner in the field. Well, there are altogether a number of presentations, 5 presentations here. The first one we will discuss about the pattern and the trend of smart learning practice, and the presenter will be Cam Chung Lee, my colleague at the Open University of Hong Kong. And for this will be another presentation by Sophie Zhang from the Education University of Hong Kong, and her presentation will be on game-based learning of information literacy. And following that, we move our focus to on the language learning. We have Michael Zhang from the Chinese University of Hong Kong to present his finding on the automatic speech recognition for EFL learning. And next, we shift our focus on non-academic side. We have L.F. Kwok and John Hui from the City University of Hong Kong to showcase their smart learning practice in extracurricular activity. And after that, we hope that all the question and answer for all the presentation to be asked in this point of time, and that will be moderated by my colleague Fu Li Wang, the Open University of Hong Kong. He would also give a closing remark here. Okay, so This is all my presentation. Maybe we now start the next presentation. The title is Review of Smart Learning Pattern and Trend in Research and Practice. Let's welcome Kamchan Lee, the Open University of Hong Kong. Dr. Lee, please.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to offer a presentation here in this meaningful event. Now, this is a very quick and brief summary of the paper just published in AJET. It's a review of smart learning. I will be offering, and in fact this study is to offer a general overview of the patterns and trends regarding smart learning in this kind of research. Smart learning, the word smart is nothing new. We have seen quite a large number of devices beginning with smart, such as smartphone. But for learning, it is really exciting, and there has been a lot of development. And we can see that it has been developed together with technology. In some way, it's technology driven, but at the same time, it is also pedagogically driven. There has been various kinds of changes, and it's really interesting and exciting to see the changes made. Now, Simon has just gone through the key concepts about smart learning. I'm not going to cover that here. I'll just be quickly going through some key points. Why this study, as I say, is important. We see that literature has covered various aspects, but they mainly cover specific aspects rather than this area in general. So this study attempts to offer a general overview of the status of smart learning and what kind of evolution we have gone through. Here are the research questions. I have looked at the patterns of the publication, patterns of research, what have been we have focused, and the trends. As it is basically literature review, I have selected from a wide range of sources. This is the methodology regarding the sources, the period of publication, 10 years, starting from the year 2010, involving keyword search and the types of publications I chose, the types of articles I've selected, and at the end, 90 articles were selected for this review and analysis. Here are the categories of data I've looked at. In the interest of time, I will just go quickly to the findings. Probably together with you, I'm very much excited to see the development. You can see that the number of publications has gone up, and the major increase is in the year 2015. And then the number of publications plateau around the period of time. And it is quite obvious that there are two periods of time. The year before, the period before 2015 and the period from 2015. So we just draw a dividing line there. Of the 90 articles we have chosen, here are the areas. Here are the sources, that is the journals that the articles were taken from, the 90 articles. Here are the countries that they come from. Now, it's interesting that you can find from the origins of the paper where the smart learning has been growing, and there's been a lot of interest in those areas. You can see that South Korea is quite dominant. It occupies 1/3 of the papers selected. As for research purposes, you can see the development. Now, one observation is that in the second period, there's been much more interest in developing a framework in relation to smart learning. As for the designing pedagogy or activities, the designing activities for smart learning, the interest seems to have dropped. As for the methodology taken, it seems that quantitative studies occupies most, about 2/3 of the articles in both periods, except that in the second period, mixed method is more often used. As for the level of education being studied, you can see that secondary occupied slightly more, somewhat more in the second period. But anyway, tertiary occupies most, and probably it's natural. Most of the researchers are in tertiary institutions. As for the area being studied, you can see that the second period was much more diverse. And it is natural. You probably remember in the first period, the number of publications was rather small, and in the second period, the number of publications was a lot more. So it's quite natural that it's more diverse. But it could also be that people have attempted to look into about the range of areas. As for the research issues, you can see that the second period is also much more diverse. Then let's look at the participants involved. In the second period, it's also much more diverse. In the first period, only students and teachers were involved. In the second period, different types of stakeholders are also involved. How about smart devices used? It's a quick look here shows that projectors quickly lose interest, and tablet has become has gained much more interest. Another notable feature is AR. As for the environment, you can see that in the second period, it is also much more diverse. They tend to be interested in other areas, especially blended environment rather than just classroom and online environment. Of course, the articles looked at the features of smart learning, and in the second period is a wide range of areas were looked at, and you can see, as you could expect, features such as AR were also included. Some older features such as ubiquitous learning, self-regulated learning will also emerge. One interesting thing to look at is collaborative learning. It seems that it has drawn quite substantial interest in the area. Just very quickly about what we could see in this area. Over this, a wide range of countries were involved. So we see that in more developed countries, has been more developed. We very much hope that it will go into a broader area. It also seems that only a few studies focus on pedagogical issues. So relevant issues for teachers have just started to be addressed in recent studies, such as readiness for smart learning. We can see that it is an interesting area, and it is worth spending a lot more time to look into. Now, In the interest of time, I just go through this part very quickly. And as you can see, there has been a trend for increasing use of mobile and interactive devices. And the success of such practice also relies on factors such as network infrastructure and teacher capability to develop new ways of working with smart devices. The kinds of institutional support needed by learners and teachers for such a trend is also worth further investigation. So it is another good area. So if you are researcher in this area, you might like to look into this area. As I mentioned, collaboration is an important area that has drawn a lot of attention, probably also personalization and intelligence. Also the adoption of AI into it. So very quickly about further studies, I believe that promotion of smart learning in developing countries and regions will be an important area, and it is worth making efforts in this area for better educational delivery. And also, transformation of teachers and teacher approaches in the smart learning process is another interesting area. Institutional support, as well as development of flexible solutions to achieve smart learning goals in various kinds of learning environments, would be an important area in smart learning. Anyway, it is a very exciting field. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and I'm ready for questions in this area. Thank you very much. I should conclude here. Over to you, Simon.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee. I hope that the question will be at the end of after all the presentation, we have a question and answer session. So if you have any question, just keep it and until after the full presentation, please ask again. All our presenter will be here. So we quickly now move to the next presentation, which is from the Education University of Hong Kong, Dr. Sophie Zhang, please.
Good morning, everyone. Could you hear me? Um,
Yes.
and thank you for inviting me to this webinar. Today, I'd like to share with you one of the projects of our research team on digital game-based learning of information literacy. As now we are all in the time of information, it has become increasingly important to help our university students to develop skills about information. That is, to help them evaluate whether they need information, how to search information, how to evaluate the quality of information critically, and how to use such kind of information in an efficient and contextualized way. And to help them develop such kind of skills, we try to develop a game-based learning. It means help students develop information literacy through the process of digital gameplay. There are three main modes of gameplay. One is solo mode, maybe the most common one. It means that students just play the game independently without much interactivity with others. The other mode is competition in game. It means that the learners in the game try to perform better than others to win this game. The third mode is collaboration. In collaborative mode, students are working team in the process of game-based learning. In the process, they exchange ideas, information, and support each other to reach their common goals. To enhance the efficiency of game-based learning, we try to use the flow theory. And when students are deeply engaged in specific activities, they are regarded to have entered such kind of a flow state. In the flow state, they concentrate on the learning materials with high level of concentration, high level of excitement. In this experience, they will enjoy themselves, enjoy the learning process, and they will have a very high learning efficiency. To help our students enter such kind of a ideal learning state, educational games should offer them three elements. First, students should be informed the goals and rules of the game at the very beginning. Secondly, they should be provided feedback, which means that they should know that evaluation of their performance in different learning tasks. Third, they should be given a sense of control, which means they could control the learning progress throughout the process. Based on the theory, we have developed a educational game on information literacy. You can see that we integrate the three elements into the game. Now I'd like to show you the flow of our game. At beginning, one NPC will introduce the setting, the storyline, the fantasy of this game to the players. Then the NPC will introduce the goals and rules of the game to the players. Then the players are required to travel around the map of this game. They should walk from venue to venue. There are five venues in the game. Each venue corresponds to one knowledge point of information literacy. In each venue, an NPC will present three learning tasks to the players: warming up questions, instructional videos about the involved knowledge point, some exercises to help them consolidate the knowledge of information literacy. After students have completed all the three learning tasks, they will be given a magic herb as a reward. When students have traveled around the map, they have walked through all the five venues. They should have learned and complete all the learning tasks of the five knowledge points. At the determination, an NPC will help the students to review their learning process, summarize the knowledge points, and show them all the magic herbs, that is, the rewards they have achieved during the process. Our study is try to investigate whether the game-based learning and the different modes of gameplay could influence students from the aspect of the development of information literacy, motivation, self-efficacy, and the flow experience. Now I'd like to show you one by one. We find that the different modes of gameplay did influence students' performance in learning. Students in collaborative mode tend to perform the best, since in collaboration, students could discuss with each other, and in the process, they exchange their ideas and help each other to enhance their understanding of the learning content in the videos. Second, by the students in the competitive group. And when students in the competitive group, they feel are highly motivated by a strong sense of competition, so they will focus on the learning. While the solo mode seems to be the least effective, although we find that students in this group still achieve significant progress. As for motivation, we find that students in collaborative mode, competitive mode, was significantly better than the solo mode, because students in the collaborative mode, they support each other, help each other, they feel connected with each other, which motivates them. And the students in competitive mode, they are motivated by a strong sense of competition. As for self-efficacy, we find that students in the competitive mode seem to have the highest level, because since they try to perform better than others, they have to be very confident in their own masteries of the target knowledge. Although students in the collaborative mode also confident in themselves, but somehow they believe that their progress could be attributed to the help of their partners. So they may be relatively a little bit lower level of self-efficacy than those in the competitive mode. We find that students in the collaborative mode seem to have the best flow experience, because students in collaboration will help each other when they encounter different kinds of problems and mistakes in the exercises, so they could enjoy the learning experiences. While the students in the competitive mode, they may focus more on the outcomes of learning, so they may enjoy the experience less. Well, a very brief conclusion, we find that we have proposed a digital game to help students develop knowledge and skills about information literacy. We find that such kind of innovative learning approach is really effective, especially when in the collaborative mood and the competitive mood. So we recommend future teachers and researchers to widely apply this kind of uh, learning approach to help students develop information literacy. Teachers should encourage students to have more discussion and collaboration, which lays down the maybe the most important reason for their success in knowledge learning. Well, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sophie. If you have any questions, please write it through the chat box, and we will have a Q&A session after all the presentation again. Let's move quickly to the next presentation from Michael Zhang of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Let's welcome Michael.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, yeah, please.
Yep.
Yeah. I would like to share my screen here because I made some adjustment to the slides. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet. Give it 1 second to come through. Actually, there we go.
Okay. Okay. First, I would like to thank the organizer. Sorry.
Sorry, Michael, but your presentation's not coming through as yet. Do you want to? Yeah, share your slides. Yeah.
Is it, can you see it right now?
No,
Okay.
there we go. That's better.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, all good now.
Okay. I would like to express my thanks for the organizers and Fuli and David, and thank for the webinar for providing this opportunity for us to share our study. Well, our study examined the effects of using ASR technology, that is automatic speech recognition technology, on oral complexity in a flipped EFL classroom. English as a foreign language classroom, if you do not know the term. Flipped classroom has gained great popularity in foreign language learning and teaching. And it was found that learners' preparedness before class was key to the success of a flipped classroom. While most of the extant studies have not yet discussed the use of ASR technology in a flipped classroom, especially in a free language classroom. So therefore, it is advisable for language teachers to enhance students' preparedness through integrating technologies such as some edge-cutting technology such as virtual reality and automatic speech recognition into students' pre-class self-learning. Well, we investigated EFL learners' oral complexity, accuracy, and fluency, and this study here only reported oral complexity results. We formulated 3 research questions to explore the between subjects effect, within subjects effect, and the potential group by time interaction effect. Well, altogether, a total of 160 first-year students of 4 classes from a public university in mainland China were enrolled in the study. Their average age was 18.1 years old, and you can see some more specific details about them. One thing I would like to mention is that over 90% of them had a little experience in flipped learning. Well, the 4 classes had been randomly assigned into experimental group and control group. Well, all the students were randomly assigned into subgroups, or they call work groups, for in-class activities within each class, and their in-class discussion over a unit task was recorded on a unit basis for data analysis. And all the students were taught in a flip mode. This is the online learning platform called Unipus for both control and experimental groups to perform flip learning. It was developed by one of the top 2 publishers in EFL learning and teaching in mainland China. Well, the plot on the left illustrated the course design. Before the course started, a pre-intervention survey as well as placement tests was administered. Then the 4 classes were randomly assigned into 2 groups. Both groups were taught in a flip mode by the same course teacher using the Unipus, the platform. The only difference is that between the 2 groups is that the experimental groups was required to use the ASR technology to perform some mediating tasks in pre-class self-learning. But the control group students were not. They just performed self-learning on their own using Unipus. Then after 14 weeks of learning and teaching, they had a post-intervention test on their overall English proficiency in achievement test. The ASR technology was implemented, you can see on the right side of the slide, via a mobile phone application called iFlyRec, which can realize real-time transcription and translation in multiple languages, as well as some typical Chinese dialects. Well, while practicing using this app, the students can see how the utterance is understood by the machine, I mean the app, via transcribed text, and they can spot their pronunciation or morphosyntactic errors in a real-time manner. Well, for each unit, they were given the same oral task to perform and were required to record their in-class discussion for data analysis. For measuring their oral English complexity, we adopted 4 metrics. You can see here in the table, VOCDD value for lexical complexity, mean length of AS unit for overall complexity under the dimension of syntactic complexity, and also mean length of clause for phrasal complexity and mean number of clauses per AS unit for subordination complexity. Well, due to the classroom noise and the dropout issues, work groups of 14 participants were entirely removed from the transcription. And also 18 participants were absent for at least one time during the semester, so their data were also removed. Therefore, eventually we have collected the data from 128 participants, and we transcribed the data and coded it using this professional app called ELAN. It is a professional software package to annotate the scripts of their in-class recordings after transcription. Well, a two-way repeated measures ANCOVA was conducted. So the study design is a mixed within and between subjects design. The independent variables were the group factor, that is experimental group and control group, as well as the time factor. We collected the data at 4 time points. Basically, there are 8 units during the whole semester, so we collect data at Unit 2, Unit 4, Unit 6, and Unit 8, that is the 4 time points. And the dependent variables were the metrics of the overall complexity I just mentioned. Those metrics were coded from students' in-class test performance. Well, our findings were miscellaneous, and this table summarizes the major findings we obtained. Well, regarding the between subjects effect, we found significant difference between those who use ASR technology and those who did not. And with different effect sizes, a significant within subject effect with a small to medium effect size was found, on phrasal complexity over time, regardless of their group membership. That is the answer to research question 2. And a significant interaction effect with small to medium effect sizes were found on overall complexity and subordination complexity. That is the answer to research question 3, the interaction effects. Well, the experimental group students' significant gains on complexity revealed that the use of ASR technology in the pre-class of learning had positive effects on English oral complexity. The ASR-based mediating task before class provided EFL learners with an avenue for interacting with the app with immediate feedback. Especially the ASR technology seemed to assist the students, the experimental group students, in managing their discourse flow in a more effortless and attention-free fashion. Well, regardless of the group membership, students' phrasal complexity was significantly enhanced over time, which was consistent with previous studies. Compared with overall complexity and subordination complexity, it might be easier for the students to improve their syntactic complexity at the phrasal level, rather than at the clausal or sentential level. And moreover, follow-up simple effects tests show that the other two metrics of syntactic complexity were both enhanced in the two groups respectively. In contrast, lexical complexity was not enhanced significantly over time. Well, those contrasting findings align with existing studies, indicating that for non-native speakers, more varied lexes seem to cause problems and provoke more errors, while not driving forward complexity. Well, the last point in the discussion, the interaction effect could be clearly noticed in the trajectories of their overall and subordination complexity. Well, one thing I would like to mention is the gradient of the experimental group from time 3 to time 4 seemed to be greater than that of the control group, indicating that at the ending phase of the program, a faster development was witnessed in the experimental group on those two metrics. Well, these are the basic conclusions I just covered. And for the limitations, first is about the representativeness, because we only enroll students from one university in China. And second, we would like to gather some qualitative data to interpret and triangulate our findings in future studies. And third, due to the regulation of the university, we were not allowed to collect data in person in the classroom. So the students just record their classroom discussion by themselves. So that might result in some data loss. Thank you so much for listening, and more in-depth discussion and results, you can refer to our paper, and please feel free to download and cite. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michael. Now, let's quickly move on to the next presentation from the City University of Hong Kong. L.F. Kwok and John Hui, please.
All right, I will pass the control to John for the main presentation, please, John.
Okay, thank you. So welcome everyone. So this section is about the employability, which is related to the smart learning in extracurricular activities for developing college graduates' competence. So let's looking by some definitions. So for smart learning environment, one of the key important role is to provide appropriate support and such as feedback, hints to students to let them to help them achieve their student learning outcome. One of the aims that to be noted is that these kind of knowledge gaining can be even when they are doing leisure activities. So it will be related to the extracurricular activities, which is some academic and non-academic activities that is normally outside the normal classroom time and part of not part of their original academic curriculum. And it is optional to students to join or not. And normally it do not have any grades or examinations. So recently, the globalization and technology advancement has changed the way we live, particularly our expectation on new graduates. So instead of looking at their transcript, employers now are looking more on their capability of solving real-world challenges. So that's why they are to make the student be job ready. Those are competencies can, for example, creativity, leadership, social skill, communication skills. From some global survey, as well as the survey in Hong Kong, these two surveys are quite matched to each other, that the employers are looking for new graduates about, for example, whether they have joined participate in the extracurricular activities more than the concern about their GPA. And the top 10 attributes are those soft skills that I have just mentioned. For example, the problem solving skill, leadership skill, ability to work as a team, communication skills, ethics. So these are the so-called 21st century competencies. In Hong Kong, similarly, employers are looking for working attitudes, analytical skills, language proficiency, interpersonal skills, this type of soft skills when they are recruiting new graduates. However, the competencies cannot be learned or teach in a traditional academic classroom. However, these can be cultivated or developed through participation in the extracurricular activities. But there is a challenges because competencies are not quantified and not easy to be measured or assessed throughout the course, like other academic courses. And different people have different definition of competencies, and different discipline may have different set of competencies to be required. Therefore, we try to implement a system called cluster in order to have a smarter way to quantify, measure, and keep the learning activities outside the classroom of students. So this diagram is summarized the philosophy of the cluster system. So learning can be through the academic curriculum or extracurricular. And for academic curriculum, it already linked, associated with the learning outcome. And through the competencies associated with the extracurricular activities, we can also map them to the learning outcome. So this forms as a complete part of the learning of students. For example, based on the expected graduate outcome of the university, we define the 5 learning outcomes at the left-hand side, and we define 36 attributes, those competencies, and group them into 7 categories. These will be pre-mapped to the extracurricular activities, and therefore the number of hours of each competency development can be stored, can be kept or measured. And through the data we collect, we have done some analysis. The first one is that a very high-level summary analysis of the data we collected through the cluster system. And the second and third is to see whether those participation level can predict the academic learning outcome as well as the job readiness. Okay, so the first part is the general observation of the data. So we find that throughout the 3 years, the number of participation have been increased because of users become more willingness to keep the data, because these data help the organization, the organizing office, and also the students. For example, the gap between the organizer and the student have been reduced a lot throughout the 3 years. In the last year, the 4 out of the top 5 attributes that are offered by the organizing office and also participate by the student are quite matched. So this shows the visibility of the data can help both the organizer and students. And we also observe the diversity of students by their discipline. For example, the College of Business students, they are focusing more on the development of interpersonal skills and also global aspect. These are actually matched with the vision and mission and value of the faculty. Similarly, for other faculties, I want to point out particularly the College of Science and Engineering students are focused the most on the language development, the language competency, which also match with other researchers' observation that engineer students have more room to improve their language competencies. So the second part is about the relationship between the participation level in the soft skill development and also their academic performance. Throughout the 3 years data, we find that the single factor effect based on the participation level is significant to their academic performance. And the third part of the analysis is about the job readiness. So we find because the computer science students need to work as a full-time staff in their 3rd years to work in a commercial company. So this data and there will be employer feedback about their performance. So there's a question in the questionnaire about the performance compared to new graduates. So we try to use this as the measure of the job readiness of the students. And because the computer science students belong to the engineering faculty, so we focus on the participation in the language proficiency development. And we divide into 2 groups of those students. And we find that for those that have participated in the language proficient development, is significantly higher being appraised by the employer. Okay, so throughout the 3 data analysis, we find that that the first is the increasing of the participation rate in the system. So it relies on the promotion work and also the senior management support of the university. And the gap has been between the organizer and student has been reduced because of the data transparency. And also the diversity has been observed. It can have a stable predictive power on the academic performance as well as the job readiness. And to further provide a smarter learning to facilitate the student in planning or facilitate the advisor in giving a more effective and timely advising service to the student, we define a ideal participation rate based on the historical data, and therefore we can plot this spider chart at the left-hand side so that the student can compare their current development of which category of competency they need. They are already developed a lot, or what type of competency they need to develop more. And they can drill down into the individual attribute level at the middle of the diagram. Okay. So this study contribute practically to different stakeholders of the learning process, including the organizer, for them to be organize activities based on the actual need and the actual situation of the students and the market. Students can conduct reflection and adjust their learning plan instead of participating in extracurricular activity based on interest and availability. Advisors can give a more have a more understanding about the students' current status and give a better service to the advisory. And also the institution can can use their resources in a better way to help students in need, and the employer can get students that are job readiness. So theoretically, it contributes to the 21st century competency domain and also the learning and analytics domain to extend the data from academic side to non-academic side. The limitation include the system has not been fully utilized by all users. So we encourage the senior management and set up some policies to improve the data quality and quantity. The other limitation is about the data is only focusing on computer science department and also focusing on the placement students instead of actual graduate career. So in fact, most of the university have a graduate exit survey. So we suggest in future study we can include the graduate exit survey data to have better understanding of the real job readiness and employability level. Okay, so this is the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex and John. We have a little bit of run, but never mind. Next, we will have Professor Fu Liu Wang to give a closing remark. After the closing remark, we will enter into the question and answer question. Welcome, Professor Wang, please.
Maybe we can start with the Q&A first. Okay. Do you have any questions? If you have any question, please type in the chat room. I noticed that there is one question in the chat. Okay, which is about the view on the impact of COVID-19. Can I invite Casey to answer this question?
Sure, Chair. Thank you, Oriel, for the question. You have got an insight about the future development. Now, you have touched on an interesting point, as I mentioned in my presentation. Collaboration will be an area of focus. But as to the extent that it will expand, I can't be. I don't think it will be highly promising, at least for the time being, until after the pandemic. The people-to-people communication very much rely on electronic communication. For research collaboration, we are under certain limitation. So I don't expect very much more research studies in the area of collaboration regarding smart learning. Though in general, if you look at research in research trends in general, not only in the field of smart learning, but in research in general, we see that there has been a general trend over the last decade that there's been more and more collaboration. But as for the time being, we can't really be too optimistic. But we could expect that there will be more and more focus on the effectiveness. Because of the pandemic, institutions are pushed to adopt e-learning, and most parts of the world, and in fact more than 90% of the world, have been using e-learning. And there has been tremendous development in this area. And key point, as we have been pushed, is about how effective it has been as compared to what we used to have. So it will be an important and an interesting area. One other important aspect is also because of the pandemic, people are separated physically. The social aspects of learning becomes somewhat important. I mean, social aspects through smart learning. as people are separated physically, to what extent we can make use of a smart learning environment to compensate and to go on having social life and make use of the social aspects of learning to for learners to carry out their learning effectively so that they can go about their learning as if they used to have, or in another way that is more effective. This is also an important and exciting area for smart learning. Thank you for your question. I hope I've answered it.
Okay,
over to you, Professor Wang.
Yeah, thanks Casey for answering the question. If there is no further question, I will make a short conclusion here. However, please continue to type your question in the chat room, and then we will go back to answer your question after my conclusion. Well, yes, after the 4 presentations, you should have more ideas about the smart learning environments. However, some of you may still have some questions. We have a general understanding of smart learning environments now, but what is the scope? Okay, what is the scope of it? I would like to echo what Simon mentioned at the beginning of this seminar. There is no single form of smart learning environments. In fact, it is very difficult to draw a boundary of smart learning environments because the scope is too large. Smart learning environment may include a lot of items. For example, personalized learning, which is to provide customized learning to address individuals' learning needs based on learners' background. Flexible learning, which is to provide flexibility in requirements, time, location, teaching, and assessment, etc. to the students. Intelligent tutoring. Well, this way is quite obvious, so I will not provide a definition here. Adaptive learning is to provide a customized learning based on learners' learning progress and their learning path through just-in-time feedback. Blended learning is to combine face-to-face learning and online learning to maximize students' learning by using educational technologies. Collaborative learning is to use group-based approach to allow a group of learners to work together to enhance their learning. Well, on open online learning is a hot topic now. There are a lot of MOOC platforms. Okay, the most famous one is probably Coursera. I assume that I need not to define it here. There are many more smart learning environments. I don't think that we can list all of them here. Why there are so many smart learning environments? Well, because we face new challenges every day. This challenge at the same time will bring new opportunities. For example, the greatest challenge that we are facing now is COVID-19. Well, I cannot see the PowerPoint now.
Keep talking. I'm gonna bring it back.
Okay. Well, this challenge at the same time will bring new opportunities. For example, the greatest challenge that we are facing now is COVID-19. The outbreak of COVID-19 create new opportunities for Zoom classes. Now, a lot of universities and schools move their lectures and tutorial to Zoom. At the same time, we also organize seminars while webinar. Today's talk is one of the examples. This form of presentation may become more popular in the future. We expect that there will be more and more new systems in the future. 7 years ago, Professor Guozhen Wang proposed 6 areas of research and development related to smart learning environments. This article is a classical reading. I will not go into details of these 6 areas today. If you want to get more details, you may refer to Professor Huang's article. This paper provides a solid foundation of research idea in smart learning environment. Cases survey results presented today also have similar findings. Quite a lot of people are doing research in these areas. In my view, the future direction for research and development on smart learning environment is more or less similar to Professor Huang's proposal. First, new smart learning environment must be designed, developed, and implemented to address the need of the learners as well as the society. As mentioned earlier, we move teaching to Zoom now. In the future, we will need more advancing technology. Second, we need to investigate related pedagogy theory and concepts. For example, how a Zoom class can be delivered effectively. As we know, Zoom class is very different from traditional classroom teaching. We need to consider the pedagogy issues. Third, we need to consider learners' behavior and learning pattern. For example, how can we keep students' learning interest without face-to-face contact at Zoom classes? For example, we are polling in the middle of classes. Resolve this issue. Fourth, we need new learning and assessment strategies. For example, some universities move exam to online now in order to keep social distancing during the pandemic period. How can we ensure academic integrity during the online exam? Can we take this opportunity to automate assessment as well? Finally, we need to evaluate the learning performance and people's acceptance of the new systems so that we can adjust our strategies and enhance the systems. Today, 3 speakers present their research in evaluation of learning performance. We believe that the other areas are equally important. In fact, many papers in this special issue address issues in other areas. However, they have no chance to present their research here because of limitation of time. The researchers are now making a joint effort to improve learning and teaching effectiveness. In the long term, students will be benefit from R&D on a smart learning environment. At last, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our speaker. Thank you for your sharing. Thank you for your effort to provide students better learning environment and experience. Okay, let's go to the chat room to see whether there is other questions.
It doesn't look like we've had any more questions in the chat. I didn't know if the panel had any final comments or any other things that they wanted to share before we call it for today. Seeing as not, I just want, on behalf of ASCILITE and AJET, we want to thank you for taking the time out to present your work. Lots of interesting perspectives there, and definitely lots of work to go into the future. And it'll be exciting to see where learning environments go, particularly in light of the acceleration we've seen through 2020. So again, we want to thank each of you for taking the time out to share your perspectives today, and thank you to our attendees for coming along. And on behalf of ASCILITE and AJET, we want to welcome you to come along to our next ASCILITE Live webinar, which will be taking place on the 2nd of June.
Thank you, David, for